The cemetery was still damp from the morning rain when Mikola closed the black umbrella and placed his hand on the cold stone of his son's fresh grave. The crowd had already thinned. Only family and a few close friends remained, their faces pale and exhausted. The young man's death had come suddenly, a car accident on a deserted road, and Mikola could not rid himself of the feeling that his son, Andrei, had wanted to tell him something before it was too late. That evening, when silence settled over the empty house, Mikola found himself in Andrei's old room. Dust lingered on the shelves, books and notebooks stacked carelessly, a faint smell of cologne still in the air. On the desk lay a black leather-bound journal, its corners frayed, pages heavy with writing. Mikola sat down, hands trembling as he opened it. At first, it seemed like the diary of any young man. Reflections about friends, short lines about girls he liked, a note about failing an exam. But then came darker words. If something happens to me, they must know about the key. The safe is the only way to set things right. Mikola froze. His breath caught in his throat as he reread the line over and over. What safe? What key? He turned page after page, and the entries grew more cryptic, fragments of thoughts, hints at something hidden. Andrei wrote about pressure, mistakes he could not undo, and debts that weighed heavier than his own life. I don't want them to think of me as weak, one line read. But when they open the safe, they will understand. Mikola's hands shook as he closed the journal. For a moment he considered hiding it, pretending he had never seen it. But the words gnawed at him. If there was something his son had left behind, it could not remain buried. The next morning, he brought the journal to his daughter, Alina. She sat at the kitchen table, her eyes red from sleepless nights. When he slid the notebook across the table, she glanced at it, then at him. What's this? Andrei's, Mikola said simply. She opened it slowly, reading a few pages before her face tightened. Dad, this is just him being dramatic. He wrote like this all the time. Not like this, Mikola snapped, pointing to the page with the message about the safe. This is different. He left us a clue. Alina pushed the journal back toward him, shaking her head. And what if he didn't? What if it's just nonsense? He was struggling, we all know it. Maybe it's just his way of venting. Mikola's voice rose. He was trying to tell us something, Alina. Don't you see? If there's a safe, if there's something inside, we need to find it. For him. She stared at him in silence, then looked away. Or maybe he didn't want us to. Maybe he wanted to take his secrets with him. The argument left the kitchen tense and cold. That night, Mikola could not sleep. He returned to the journal, running his finger over the ink, searching for any mention of places, names, numbers. And then, almost hidden in the margins of one page, he found it. Old garage, beneath the boards. His pulse quickened. He knew exactly which garage it was, the small, half-forgotten one near the family's country house. Memories of weekends spent fixing the car with Andrei flashed before him. Could it be that the safe was there all along? At dawn he drove out to the garage, journal clutched in his hand. The wooden boards creaked under his steps, dust rising into the dim light. He knelt and began pulling at the planks in the corner, his heart pounding. The third board came loose, and beneath it lay a small steel door embedded in the concrete floor. A safe. Real. Cold. Heavy. Mikola sat back, staring at it, breathless. The key was still missing, but the truth was undeniable. His son had hidden something here, something important enough to leave behind in cryptic notes. He ran his hand over the steel, whispering into the empty garage. What did you want us to see, Andrei? The silence offered no answer, only deepened the mystery. Mikola closed the journal carefully, knowing the fight with Alina was only beginning. When Mikola returned from the garage that morning, dust clinging to his clothes and exhaustion written across his face, Alina was waiting for him in the kitchen. She noticed the look in his eyes before he spoke, a kind of wild determination mixed with dread. He dropped the journal on the table, opened it to the page with the words, Old Garage, beneath the boards, and then, without a word, placed a small photograph next to it, one he had found tucked inside the back cover. It was of Andrei, younger, maybe 17, standing in front of that very garage, smiling stiffly, as if forced to pose. It's there, Mikola said, his voice low but heavy with certainty. I saw it with my own eyes. A safe, built into the floor. Alina blinked at him, stunned. You actually found something? Yes, he said. And you can't deny it now. He wanted us to know. She rubbed her temples, sighing. And what then? Let's say there's a safe. What if it's just old junk, or worse, something he didn't want anyone to see? You really think he left us a treasure? Mikola slammed his fist against the table, startling her. Not a treasure. The truth. Don't you care about what your brother was hiding? Don't you want to know why he wrote these words? Why he left us a clue? Alina looked down at the photo, then at the journal, her lips pressed tight. I don't know if I want to know, she whispered. Because what if it's something ugly? What if all this does is make us hate him? The tension in the room thickened. Mikola couldn't understand her hesitation. For him, searching for the safe had become a way of clinging to Andrei, of refusing to let his son vanish without answers. But for Alina, it was a threat, the possibility of tarnishing the fragile memory she was trying to hold on to. That night, their argument continued. Mikola insisted they return to the garage together, to open the safe as a family. Alina refused, saying it would only deepen the wound. Their voices rose, accusations spilled. You always avoided responsibility, Mikola barked. Even now you want to close your eyes, pretend nothing exists, while I'm left carrying everything. Alina's voice cracked with anger. And you always need control. Maybe this is about you, not him. Maybe you can't stand not knowing every detail of his life, even when he's gone. Mikola stormed out, leaving her sobbing at the table. Alone, Alina picked up the journal again. She read the cryptic entries in silence, her fingers brushing over the lines about pressure, mistakes, debts. A chill ran through her. Could it be that her father was right, that Andrei had hidden something serious? Yet she couldn't shake the dread that what lay in that safe would shatter their last illusions about him. Days passed, and the safe seemed to cast a shadow over the household. Mikola grew restless, pacing at night, revisiting the garage by day, tapping on the steel door as if listening for answers. Alina avoided him, burying herself in work, but the tension between them grew unbearable. Finally, she confronted him one evening. What if we open it, she said carefully, and it ruins us? What if whatever is inside makes us wish we'd left it closed? Mikola looked at her, his eyes burning. It's already ruining us. Don't you see? It's between us, choking us. We can't move on until we know. She fell silent, unable to argue. He was right. The journal had already poisoned their grief. They couldn't mourn Andrei in peace, not while a locked safe whispered promises of secrets. And so, reluctantly, she agreed. They would open it, together. But there was still a problem. The safe required a key or a code. Mikola had found neither. The journal contained no numbers, no clear directions beyond the garage. For days they searched Andrei's belongings, flipping through old books, clothes, even dismantling his computer. Nothing. The frustration gnawed at them, every failure sparking new fights. Mikola accused Alina of holding something back, of being too afraid to look. She accused him of obsession, of turning their grief into a scavenger hunt. And then, one night, Mikola found her in Andrei's room, sitting on the floor surrounded by papers. She held a crumpled piece of notebook paper in her hands, her face pale. Look, she whispered, handing it to him. On it were scribbled a series of numbers, repeated 3 times, 110395. Beneath them, in shaky handwriting, was written, "Don't forget, her birthday." Mikola's heart skipped. November 3rd, 1995, Alina's birth date. They stared at each other, realization dawning. The code was her birthday. The weight of it hit them both. Why would Andrei choose her birthday, of all things, as the key to his hidden safe? Alina's eyes filled with tears. Was it a message for me? Or was it a warning? Mikola gripped the paper, determination hardening his jaw. Whatever it is, we'll know soon enough. Tomorrow, we open it. That night, neither of them slept. The following morning carried with it the weight of inevitability. Mikola had barely touched his coffee, his hands trembling slightly as he kept glancing at the folded slip of paper in his pocket, the numbers etched into his mind like a curse. Alina, pale and sleepless, sat across from him, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug, avoiding his eyes. At last he stood, grabbed the keys to the garage, and said simply, "It's time." She followed without a word. The air outside was sharp, autumn leaves scattering under their steps. When they reached the garage, the place felt charged, as if the walls themselves anticipated what would happen. Mikola knelt by the floorboards, pried them up once more, and revealed the steel door of the safe, its surface dull but unyielding. He entered the digits slowly. 1, 1, 0, 3, 9, 5. Each click of the dial echoing through the room like a hammer against bone. For a moment nothing happened. Then a mechanical clunk broke the silence. The lock disengaged. Mikola froze, his breath caught. Alina's hand hovered near his shoulder. "Open it," she whispered. He pulled the handle. The door creaked. Darkness yawned inside. At first they saw only stacks of envelopes, tightly bound bundles of cash, and beneath them, folders filled with papers. Mikola reached in, pulling out a folder, flipping through documents that made his face pale. "Loans," he muttered. "Unpaid debts. Contracts. Signatures." Alina leaned over, scanning the pages. Some bore Andri's name, others a stranger's. The numbers were staggering, far beyond anything they had imagined. Tens of thousands, maybe more. He was in trouble, she whispered. Deep trouble. They kept digging. Beneath the folders was a small box. Mikola opened it with trembling hands. Inside lay a pistol, its metal dull and worn, along with 2 spare magazines. Alina gasped and backed away, her hand covering her mouth. What the hell was he involved in? She cried. Mikola's mind raced. Debt. Weapons. Secrets. Suddenly, the image of his son wasn't the clean-faced boy he remembered, but a desperate young man trapped in something dangerous. And then, buried beneath the cash, Mikola found a black notebook. Smaller than the journal, battered, with pages filled in hurried handwriting. He opened it, and the truth began to unravel. The entries were fragmented, chaotic, but one name repeated over and over. Taras. Next to it were words like deadline, threats, payment, don't tell mom. Mikola felt his stomach twist. Taras, his cousin. My sister's son, he muttered. Alina's eyes widened. You're saying Andri and Taras? Mikola nodded grimly. He wasn't alone in this. The realization cut them both. Family. This wasn't some faceless stranger pulling Andri into debts and threats. It was blood. Alina sank to the floor, tears spilling down her cheeks. Why didn't he come to us? Why hide everything until it killed him? Mikola clenched the notebook, his jaw tight. Because he didn't trust us. Or maybe he thought we couldn't help. He shut the safe roughly, the sound echoing. But we're going to find Taras. He knows more than he's said. That afternoon they drove across town, silence heavy between them, until they reached Taras' small apartment. He looked startled when he saw them on his doorstep, his eyes flicking nervously as though expecting someone else. Uncle, Alina, what brings you here? His voice wavered. Mikola shoved the notebook into his chest. You tell me. Because Andri's dead, and your name is all over this. Taras' face drained of color. He tried to speak, but faltered, motioning them inside quickly, as if afraid of prying eyes. The apartment was cluttered, dim. He closed the curtains, then sat heavily at the table, running his hands through his hair. I never wanted this, he said, voice breaking. But Andri, he thought he could handle it. He thought he could outsmart them. Handle what? Alina demanded, her voice sharper than she expected. Who are they? Taras stared at her, then at Mikola, before whispering. People who don't forgive debts. People who gave us money when no bank would. At first it was just a small loan. Then it grew. Andri thought he could gamble his way out, double it, clear everything. But it only dug deeper. I tried to stop him, I swear. But he wouldn't listen. Alina shook her head, disbelief cutting her. And the gun? The safe? The threats? Taras buried his face in his hands. It was all real. They wanted collateral. Proof we wouldn't run. The money in that safe wasn't his, it was theirs. He was supposed to deliver it last month. When he didn't, he trailed off, tears pooling. Mikola felt a surge of rage. So you let him sink, let him carry it alone? My son died because of this. He slammed his fist on the table, making Taras flinch. Do you know what you've done? Taras sobbed. I thought he could still make it right. I thought he had time. He told me not to involve you. He didn't want his mother to know. I swear I didn't know it would end like this. The room spun with emotions, grief, fury, betrayal. Alina stared at her cousin, seeing him not as family, but as a co-conspirator in the downfall of her brother. And yet, in his tears, she also saw desperation, the same kind that must have consumed Andri. For a moment, her anger cracked, replaced by something colder, pity. Mikola, however, was not softened. He grabbed Taras by the collar, pulling him close. "You're coming with us. You're going to the police. You're going to tell them everything." But Taras shook his head violently, terror in his eyes. "You don't understand. If I talk, they'll come for me. For you, for everyone. They don't forgive, they don't forget. If you open your mouths, you'll be dead before you leave your house." The words hung in the air like smoke. Alina's chest tightened. The threat was no longer just shadows. It was real, looming over them. Mikola let go of Taras with disgust, but inside, he felt a knot of fear. Could this faceless they truly reach into their lives, destroy what little remained? Alina finally spoke, her voice trembling but firm. "Then we need to decide. Do we expose this and risk everything, or bury it like Andrei tried to, and let the poison eat us alive?" No one answered. The silence was deafening. The only sound was the distant hum of traffic outside, indifferent to the storm that had engulfed their family. That night was suffocating. The air inside the house felt heavy, as if the walls themselves had soaked up their secrets and now pressed them back with silent judgment. Alina lay awake on the couch, her mind replaying Taras' terrified words over and over. "If you talk, they'll come for you." She kept imagining footsteps outside, shadows creeping at the window, the metallic click of that pistol lying in their garage safe. Sleep refused to come. Mikola sat at the kitchen table, a bottle of vodka half empty, the black notebook lying open before him like a cursed scripture. He flipped through its pages again and again, searching for answers, but each line only deepened the dread. Names, numbers, addresses. The scrawled notes of a son who had drowned in desperation. Around 3 in the morning, headlights swept across the curtains. Mikola stiffened. A car idled outside for several minutes, its engine rumbling low, before finally pulling away. He went to the window, watching the red glow of taillights vanish into the dark. Fear clamped his chest. Were they being watched already? By morning, neither of them had truly slept. Alina's face was pale, her eyes sunken, but her voice carried a sudden steel. "We can't just sit here waiting. We need to act. Either we go to the police, or we take that money and disappear before they come knocking." Mikola bristled. "Run? And what? Spend the rest of our lives hiding like rats? That's not living." His hand shook as he lit a cigarette. "But the police," he trailed off. The police meant questions, evidence, confessions. Taras had begged them not to. And yet, wasn't silence exactly what killed Andrei? They argued for hours, voices rising, until both were hoarse. At last, Mikola slammed his fist on the table. "Enough. I'll decide tonight. But I won't let this family rot in fear." Later that afternoon, he tried calling Taras again, but the line went straight to voicemail. By evening, Taras' phone was disconnected entirely. Panic gnawed at him. Alina noticed it too, her lips trembling as she whispered, "He's gone, isn't he?" The next day, Mikola drove to Taras' apartment. The building was quiet, too quiet. He knocked, then banged. No answer. He tried the handle. Locked. But a neighbor leaned out from across the hall, frowning. "You looking for Taras?" she asked. Mikola nodded. The woman shook her head grimly. "2 men came last night. Big, silent types. He left with them. Didn't take anything. Didn't look like he wanted to go." Mikola's blood ran cold. He thanked her numbly, then staggered back to the car. By the time he told Alina, she was already trembling, clutching her chest. "They've got him," she whispered. "And if he talked, if he even hinted that we know, they'll come for us next." That evening, they sat in silence, the house dark except for the faint glow of a lamp. Every creak of the floorboards made them flinch. At one point, someone knocked on the door, just a light rap, but enough to make Alina's heart nearly stop. Mikola grabbed the pistol from the garage safe, holding it awkwardly, his hands sweating. When he opened the door, no one was there. Only an envelope on the step. He brought it inside. Inside were 2 photos. One of him, taken outside the grocery store earlier that week, and one of Alina at her workplace. On the back of hers, a single word was scrawled in bold, jagged letters, "Soon." Alina collapsed into tears. Mikola felt his stomach turn, fury and helplessness colliding. "They're playing with us," he muttered. "Like cats with mice." That night, they barely spoke. Fear wrapped itself tighter around their throats, choking every thought. Alina clutched Andrei's old sweater as if it could protect her from the faceless threat pressing closer. Mikola drank until his vision blurred, the pistol lying loaded on the table before him. He had always thought himself a strong man, but now he felt like glass, fragile, ready to shatter. The following morning, he made a decision. He told Alina he was going to the police. She begged him not to, terrified of provoking the faceless predators watching them, but he shook his head. If we keep silent, they'll swallow us whole. If I fall, so be it, but I won't die a coward. He left before she could stop him. The police station was sterile, indifferent. Mikola sat across from a tired-looking officer, the notebook and envelope on the table between them. He expected shock, urgency, even protection. Instead, the officer thumbed through the evidence slowly, then looked at him with flat eyes. These are serious claims. But without witnesses, without your nephew to testify, it's just papers and guesses. Mikola slammed his hands down. My son is dead because of this. My nephew is missing. What more do you need? The officer leaned back, sighing. Be careful what you stir up. Sometimes it's better not to dig too deep. Something in his tone, half warning, half dismissal, made Mikola's blood boil. He realized with a sick twist that even the law wasn't safe ground. Someone had already tied its hands. When he returned home, empty and seething, Alina saw his face and knew. They own everything, don't they? She whispered. Mikola said nothing, just sat heavily at the table, burying his face in his hands. For the first time, he truly felt the weight of collapse. No allies, no protection, no path forward. Only the encroaching shadow of those unseen men who had swallowed his son and now reached for him too. That night, he and Alina sat side by side in the dark, holding each other like shipwreck survivors clinging to the last piece of driftwood. Outside, a car slowed near their house. Its engine rumbled for a long, suffocating moment before moving on. But the message was clear. Tom was running out. The breaking point came 2 nights later. Alina woke to the sound of gravel crunching outside. She shook Mikola awake, her whisper ragged with panic. He grabbed the pistol from the table, moving to the window. 2 cars had pulled up near the house, engines humming low, headlights off. Shadows moved inside. Mikola's pulse thundered. They were no longer being warned. They were being taken. He motioned for Alina to stay low and crept to the back door. But before he reached it, the front door shook violently. A fist pounded once, twice, then a voice growled through the wood. Open. We just want to talk. Mikola froze. There was no mistaking the menace in that tone. He raised the gun, his hands trembling, and shouted back, Leave us alone. Silence followed. Then, without warning, the window shattered. A masked man reached through, fumbling for the lock. Mikola fired. The blast roared through the house, sending glass raining across the floor. The intruder yelped and fell back. For a split second, victory surged in Mikola's chest, until another voice hissed from outside, Burn it. His heart stopped. Flames erupted on the porch as a bottle crashed and shattered, fire licking hungrily at the wooden walls. Alina screamed. Mikola grabbed her hand, dragging her toward the back, but another crash came from that side. More fire, sealing their escape. Smoke thickened quickly, the air choking. Alina coughed violently, her eyes wide with terror. Mikola knew they had minutes, maybe less. He pulled her to the garage. The old car sat waiting. He fumbled the keys, hands slick with sweat, finally jamming them into the ignition. The engine groaned, coughed, then roared. He rammed the car straight through the back door, wood splintering as the vehicle burst into the yard. Flames chased them, the house collapsing behind. Tires spun, gravel sprayed, and the car shot down the road into the night. Mikola's chest heaved, his knuckles white on the wheel. Alina sobbed quietly beside him, her face streaked with soot. Behind them, their home was consumed, the life they had built reduced to an inferno. Where do we go? She rasped. Mikola's voice was hoarse. Somewhere they won't find us. Anywhere. But even as he said it, doubt gnawed at him. They had seen the photos. They knew everywhere he shopped, everywhere Alina worked. There was no running far enough. He drove aimlessly until dawn, finally pulling into an abandoned rest stop. They sat in silence, too shaken to speak, until Alina whispered, Maybe we should give them what they want. Maybe it's the only way. Mikola's stomach twisted. Hand over the notebook? Betray Andri's memory? Let his son's death be erased under more silence? The thought curdled inside him. No, he said fiercely. If we do that, then Andri died for nothing. Terra's disappeared for nothing. I won't let them erase this. His hands trembled as he dug the pistol from under his seat, staring at it as though it might answer him. He realized then the true choice: surrender to fear and vanish into shadows, or fight, even if it meant his own end. Hours later, as evening fell again, Mikola made his decision. He drove to the edge of the city, toward the industrial district where Andri's notes had hinted at a warehouse meeting place. Alina begged him not to, clinging to his arm, but he gently pulled free. I can't live hiding anymore, he told her. Better to fall standing than suffocate on my knees. She wept, but in her eyes was a flicker of understanding. At the warehouse, the air reeked of oil and dust. Mikola parked in the shadows, notebook clutched under his arm. He could hear voices inside, low, commanding, dangerous. He stepped into the light, every nerve screaming, but his resolve like iron. The men turned as he entered, surprise flashing into cold recognition. One of them smirked. You must be the father. Mikola raised the notebook high. This ends tonight. Either the world sees this, or you bury me here with it. But I won't be silent anymore. The men laughed darkly. One reached for his weapon. Mikola aimed his pistol, heart hammering. The standoff hung like a blade over them all, one breath away from shattering. And in that suspended moment, he realized there was no way back. Whatever happened next would seal everything. His fate, Alina's, Andri's memory. He drew in one final, steadying breath as the first shot rang out. The echo of gunfire tore through the warehouse, ricocheting against steel beams and rattling Mikola's bones. He didn't know if he had fired first or if their bullet missed by luck, but the smell of cordite and fear flooded his senses. The men surged forward, shadows with guns raised, their eyes lit by ruthless certainty. Mikola fired wildly, one round catching a figure in the shoulder, spinning him backward with a grunt. Shouts filled the air, commands, curses, the sound of boots hammering against concrete. Mikola dove behind a rusted crate, his chest heaving, his hands slick with sweat. He had never killed a man before. He didn't even know if he had now, but blood was on the floor, and he could no longer pretend he was just a grieving father. He was a hunted animal, fighting with teeth bared. He clutched the notebook to his chest like a shield, then stuffed it inside his coat. His mind screamed at him, run, survive, just one more step. But another voice, fainter, Andri's voice, whispered, if you let this die, so do I. Bullets chipped the concrete near his head. He scrambled sideways, crashing through debris, until he saw a ladder bolted to the wall. He climbed, his muscles burning, until he reached the catwalk above. From there he could see the men fanning out below, hunting him like wolves. One raised his weapon. Mikola ducked just in time as the railing behind him shattered. His heart pounded so hard it drowned out everything. He realized with a sick certainty that he wouldn't leave this place alive, unless he chose how it ended. A plan, reckless, final, took shape. He tore a matchbook from his coat pocket. He had kept it since the firebomb at his house, a grim reminder. Now it might serve a purpose. He doused the notebook pages with oil from a leaking drum, struck a match, and held it trembling in his hand. The flames licked greedily at the paper, the ink curling, words vanishing into smoke. The men below shouted in fury. One screamed, "Stop him!" But Mikola's voice rang out across the cavernous hall, raw and defiant. My son's blood won't stay buried. If I die, the truth dies with me, but I'll make damn sure you choke on its ashes. He hurled the burning notebook down onto the floor. Flames erupted, racing across the oil-slick concrete, leaping from one puddle to the next. The warehouse itself became a furnace. Men scattered, their curses drowned by the roar of fire. Smoke swallowed everything, black and choking. Mikola staggered along the catwalk, coughing violently, eyes watering. His vision blurred, but he pressed on. He didn't know if escape was possible, or if fate had already sealed him to burn alongside the secrets he had set alight. Somewhere beyond the smoke, he thought he heard Alina's voice, desperate, calling his name. Had she followed him here? He tried to answer, but his lungs refused. His knees buckled, and the world tilted. Flames leapt higher, consuming wood, metal, flesh. He crawled, dragging himself toward the faint outline of a doorway. His strength faltered. Just before darkness claimed him, he thought of Andri as a child, laughing in the yard, his arms open. Mikola whispered his son's name like a prayer, then everything went black. When he awoke, he was in a hospital bed. His body was wrapped in bandages, his chest tight with pain. Alina sat beside him, her face pale but alive, eyes swollen from crying. She clutched his hand as if it were the last anchor in a storm. "You're here," she whispered, trembling. Mikola's throat was raw, his voice barely a rasp. "The notebook?" Alina shook her head slowly. "Gone. The fire took it all." He felt a strange mix of despair and relief. The proof was destroyed, the evidence ash. Yet so was the weapon those men had hunted them for. He had ended it, not by delivering justice, but by burning the very truth they sought to bury. Days turned into weeks. The police visited, asked questions, but their interest was cursory. The official story became a warehouse fire, suspicious but inconclusive. Taras was never found. Andrei remained just another lost son. The shadows that had hunted them seemed to retreat, satisfied or perhaps wary of returning to ashes. Mikola and Alina moved away quietly, to a smaller town where no one knew their names. They lived simply, carrying scars both visible and unseen. At night, Mikola sometimes woke choking on phantom smoke, his hands reaching for a notebook that no longer existed. Alina would soothe him, whispering that it was over, though both knew some ghosts never leave. On the anniversary of Andrei's death, Mikola lit a candle and placed it on the windowsill. He whispered to the flame, "I couldn't save you, but I burned the chains they wrapped around your memory. They'll never use you again." Alina stood beside him, silent tears glistening, and together they watched the candle flicker against the dark. The war had taken everything: home, peace, even the truth, but in the silence that followed, they clung to what remained, the fragile, stubborn will to endure. And though the ashes of the notebook had scattered into the wind, Mikola carried its story etched forever in his bones. He knew that sometimes survival was the only kind of justice a man could win.